As night settled over the Mo family estate, Moyan checked up on Mo Bei, concerned after hearing that he had been beaten yet again. But Mo Bei just reassured her not to worry, insisting that he wouldn't suffer any long-lasting trauma from these defeats. His words brought a smile to her face, and after all, he was a future head of their family. Her encouragement seemed to ignite a spark in him, and he loudly declared that during his match with Fang Yuan, he had noticed something. Fang Yuan was panting heavily. He wasn't as invincible as people thought. Mo Bei vowed that one day he would defeat him fair and square. Though injured now, he saw this as an opportunity to strengthen himself. Using the time to nurture his aperture walls and push toward the middle stage, he was determined to suppress Fang Yuan's dominance and claim the position of class head. This would be the ultimate lesson to Fang Yuan. That talent was what truly mattered for a Gu master's cultivation. Seeing this conviction, Moyan felt reassured. It seemed her little brother was finally maturing into a man. Meanwhile, in the Qi family, Qilian continued to spoon-feed his nephew Qicheng, a secret he kept well hidden from others. Being of trash-grade talent, Qicheng required such methods every 3 days to sustain his performance. Though Qilian couldn't help but feel guilt for his part in this charade, his greed had forced Qicheng to rely on such interventions, which carried undeniable side effects. The silver-white essence Qilian provided mixed into Qicheng's aperture, and the more external energy used, the more impure his aperture became. Over time, this would stifle Qicheng's potential and limit his future development. Yet, despite knowing the risks, Qicheng remained willing, all for the sake of the clan. His selflessness touched Qilian deeply. To lighten the mood, Qilian spoke optimistically, suggesting that if they could locate the cleansing water Gu, they could purify Qicheng's aperture walls and flush out the impurities completely, erasing all side effects. Qilian also shared that he had been using his connections to search for a liquor worm for Qicheng. Nurturing his aperture this way would eliminate risks and provide a far superior effect. However, liquor worms were notoriously rare. Legends spoke of Gu that could even change a Gu master's talent, but in his many years, Qilian had never encountered one. Still, he hoped Qicheng might someday find such a fateful opportunity. A true display of familial love indeed. Meanwhile, Fang Zheng sat alone as usual, cultivating with the limited number of primeval stones he possessed. Despite his small resources, his confidence as a first-class talent remained unwavering. He felt certain that in 3 or 4 days he would advance to the middle stage. Though he was no match for his brother in martial arts, he firmly believed that in terms of cultivation he held the upper hand. His primeval essence capacity and recovery speed were twice as fast as Fang Yuan's, or so he thought. In reality, Fang Yuan was far ahead. Nearing the middle stage, he felt tonight might be the perfect moment for a breakthrough. Night offered uninterrupted focus, as even the slightest disturbance during such a crucial moment could result in failure, or worse, damage to his aperture. With this in mind, he concentrated fully, pushing all distractions aside. As expected, his primeval sea began to ripple and rise violently, signaling the approach of his breakthrough. Thanks to his fortified aperture, the process was smooth, and his efforts bore fruit. Fang Yuan had successfully reached the middle stage. However, the effort had taken longer than he anticipated. The sun had already risen, but before he could even leave his bed, guards barged into his room like rabid dogs, sent by the academy elder who assumed he was skipping class. These intrusions could have derailed his entire breakthrough if they had arrived just a bit earlier. And the realization left him seething with anger. The poor fools had no idea what they got themselves into. Meanwhile, inside the classroom, the students buzzed with anticipation, whispering excitedly about Fang Yuan's apparent trouble. The academy elder, known for his strictness, seemed ready to finally catch Fang Yuan's elusive weak point. He had failed to do so the previous day, but now it appeared Fang Yuan had handed him the opportunity on a silver platter by skipping class. Even Fang Zheng couldn't hide his satisfaction, silently hoping to see his brother reprimanded. The entire room shared the same thought. Fang Yuan's downfall was imminent. As the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, the elder felt a surge of triumph. This was his chance to punish the boy and strip away his insufferable arrogance. Fang Zheng watched intently along with the rest of the class, their collective anticipation palpable. When a knock echoed through the room, Rabbit Teeth, eager to witness Fang Yuan's misfortune firsthand, hurried to open the door, prepared to welcome what he assumed would be his classmates' humiliation. But as the door creaked open, Rabbit Teeth froze, his face draining of color. A strangled cry of terror escaped him, sending a ripple of tension through the room. When the door swung fully open, the reason for his fear became horrifyingly clear. Standing there was no ordinary student, but a figure who radiated the aura of a demon. Fang Yuan entered, dragging a limp body by its hair as though it were a mere doll. His eyes, cold and devoid of any light, seemed like endless voids, chilling everyone to their core. Screams erupted, particularly from the girls, as the gruesome sight sent waves of fear through the class. Even the elder, who had been so confident in his impending triumph, was momentarily stunned. This was far from the scenario he had envisioned. Snapping out of his shock, he demanded an explanation, his voice laced with both anger and disbelief. The scene before him was unthinkable. It looked as though Fang Yuan had killed someone, and for no other reason than sheer amusement. But, as always, Fang Yuan remained unfazed, his composure unshaken. With a calmness that only served to unnerve the elder further, he declared that he indeed had an explanation. Yet, the elder wasn't convinced. He braced himself for what he believed would be a web of lies, certain that Fang Yuan had finally dug his own grave. But as Fang Yuan began to calmly explain himself, his words started to click, leaving the room in a stunned silence. He accused the guards of harboring impure motives and devious intentions. After all, it was common knowledge that interrupting a Gu master during cultivation, especially during a breakthrough, was incredibly dangerous. A single moment of distraction could not only cause the breakthrough to fail, but also result in severe damage to the aperture. Yet, these guards had barged in at the critical moment. Fang Yuan declared that he was fortunate to have already stepped into the middle stage when they stormed in. Had they interrupted even a moment earlier, the consequences would have been catastrophic. But instead of admitting their mistake, they had the audacity to boast about their actions, even threatening him and going so far as to disrespect their clan's ancestors. To add insult to injury, they claimed the elder himself had ordered them to act. As a loyal student, he could not believe such a claim and had resisted their actions with all his might. The guards were skilled in martial arts, forcing him to fight for his life. Eventually, he subdued them, but out of respect for their positions, he refrained from killing them. Instead, he inflicted severe but non-lethal injuries, cutting off one guard's arm and the other's leg. Despite the blood loss, he assured the room that they were still alive. The class and the elder were stunned, not only by the brutal outcome, but also by Fang Yuan's claim that he had successfully advanced to the middle stage. Even the elder, skeptical of such a bold statement, demanded proof, warning Fang Yuan that lying would be the gravest mistake of his life. Unshaken, Fang Yuan spread his arms, inviting the elder to verify his claim. The elder approached, carefully inspecting Fang Yuan's aperture. To his disbelief, the evidence was undeniable. Fang Yuan had indeed formed a water wall, the hallmark of a middle-stage Gu master. The elder announced the truth to the class, confirming that Fang Yuan had advanced. Shock rippled through the room. Every face was frozen in disbelief, mouths agape. How could this even be possible? A third-rate talent had once again surpassed everyone, even the so-called first-class prodigies. Not once, not twice, but now, for the third time, Fang Yuan had shattered their expectations. The unspoken question lingered in the air. How did he manage to do it? And it seemed the elder had the same burning question as the rest of the class, so he wasted no time and confronted Fang Yuan directly. Yet, as expected, the sly boy was not about to reveal anything of substance, and just reasoned out that the heaven rewards the hard-working, and as a result of his persistent training, he had advanced smoothly. But of course, this didn't sit well with anyone, as they even recall seeing him strolling around the shop district just days prior. The elder wasn't convinced either, his skeptical gaze fixed firmly on the boy. Yet, despite his doubts, there was nothing he could do. This brat was utterly unshakable, fearless, unbothered, and unfazed. Not even the elder's stern questioning could rattle him. How could someone like this, a third-rate talent, be the first to reach the middle stage? There had to be a secret behind his success. Yet if Fang Yuan refused to speak, the elder, bound by his position and the academy's rules, couldn't force him to confess. Frustrated, but left with no other options, the elder reluctantly conceded that he would have to investigate this matter privately. But even before the elder could dwell further on the matter, Fang Yuan's audacity reached new heights. He put on an exaggerated act of concern, feigning fear for the injured guards. He pointed out that they had lost a significant amount of blood and, if left untreated, might die soon. The elder, though fully aware of Fang Yuan's performance, had no choice but to play along in front of the watching students. With a forced calm, he assured Fang Yuan that the guards would receive proper treatment and survive. But as for Fang Yuan himself, if it were entirely up to the elder, he would have reprimanded the boy severely, maybe even locked him up in the clan jail. This troublesome brat had defied expectations at every turn. In the elder's original plan, Fang Yuan's offenses, skipping class and injuring the guards, could have been framed as defiance against his teachers and sheer arrogance. That would have justified strict punishment under the clan rules. However, the situation had become far more complicated. Fang Yuan's breakthrough to the middle stage had shifted the entire narrative. Skipping class to cultivate and injuring the guards in self-defense were now overshadowed by his undeniable success. This allows him to be on the side of reason. As for what he relied on to advance to middle stage, he will figure it out later. The problem is he cannot execute any punishments on this brat. The Academy's mission was to nurture talent, not suppress it. If the elder punished an outstanding student without valid grounds, then he is not worthy of being a teacher anymore. Besides, he needs to be impartial, at least on the surface, because these are the rules and regulations, and damn, this was such a hard-to-get opportunity. Could he really let Fang Yuan walk away without consequences? The thought alone was intolerable. No, the elder resolved to bide his time and find another way. This wasn't over. Meanwhile, Fang Yuan couldn't help but smirk at the elder's expression. He could practically see the wheels turning in the man's mind, no doubt trying to concoct a way to deal with him personally. The situation had grown far more complex than the elder had anticipated. This wasn't just a disciplinary issue anymore. It had escalated into a direct confrontation between Fang Yuan and the elder. The elder sought to suppress him, wielding the clan rules like a weapon. However, what the elder hadn't anticipated was Fang Yuan's unyielding defiance and sharp maneuvering. Every action Fang Yuan took seemed reckless on the surface, but they struck precisely where it mattered. His advancement to the middle stage served as the perfect shield, turning what should have been his downfall into a complete reversal of power dynamics, leaving the elder with little ground to stand on. As for the two unfortunate guards, they were nothing more than collateral damage, unwitting pawns caught in the crossfire of this escalating power struggle. With this, the elder couldn't help but wish Fang Yuan had simply killed the two guards outright. If that had been the case, he could have retaliated against Fang Yuan with a clear argument. But now, he had no leverage, nothing to pin on the boy. It is truly hard to believe that such meticulous and experienced method was used by a teenager. Now, it's no wonder to the elder back in those days the clan had rumors about Fang Yuan's early awakened intelligence and poetic talent. But there was no turning back. The elder can only find a way to counterattack. Meanwhile, Fang Yuan stood smiling, fully aware of the elder's predicament. As he believes the elder can only blame his loss on his own status, it is his strongest weapon, but at the same time his biggest weakness. The elder wants to not only treat him impartially, but also sanction him. But with the status of Academy Elder of his, it's impossible to do both. That's why the elder has no choice but to accept his explanation. And the elder recognized this and how pointless it was to challenge the narrative Fang Yuan had crafted. He had handpicked those guards, men who would never be so foolish as to scorn their clan ancestors. His words were on purpose. It was a blatant accusation, but he can only accept it because it's a trap. Because once he gets to know the truth after pursuing the matter, how would he settle it? If the elder doesn't sanction him, those two innocent guards would have been involved for nothing, and the elder wouldn't be treating them fairly. How would he command their respect in the future? On the other hand, if he did punish Fang Yuan, a Gu Yue clansman, for the sake of two outsiders, that would be jealousy and envy of true talent. If the affair blows up, it would start an outrage and pressure from everyone. So the only viable solution was to pretend that nothing happened and turning a blind eye to it, seeing those two guards as discarded pieces. The elder will just have to admit that they had committed a huge mistake, as well as praise Fang Yuan. This way, the clansmen would be satisfied. And as long as the truth is hidden from the guards, they would also think that this matter got settled fairly. It is killing two birds with one stone. Still, even though the elder had found a way to address the issue, he can't deny that this brat is just way too cunning. Fang Yuan's disrespect was blatant. He had turned the elder into a target. The elder not only failed to suppress Fang Yuan this time, but also got humiliated. More importantly, if these two guards feel as if they suffered injustice and wish to reveal the truth, he must be the first one to shut them down in order to maintain his image. All of this turmoil stemmed from Fang Yuan's manipulations. The elder felt as if Fang Yuan had spat in his face, and worse, he had to wipe it clean while praising the boy for his audacity. And if any outsider says that he has spit on his face, he must shut their mouth, or right on the spot. And he has never felt such humiliation and frustration since the day he became Academy Elder. This is truly beyond annoying. And it was all because of that insufferable brat, Fang Yuan. If only he could give the boy the slap of his life, so he wouldn't challenge his authority ever again. Yet, with clenched teeth, he praised Fang Yuan as a model student. And to make matters worse, Fang Yuan feigned humility, irritating the elder even further. It felt as if the boy was dancing on his grave, reveling in his victory. But that will be all for today, so tune in next time for more.